welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection of humans and technology. I'm here with Susan. Hello, Susan.
I'm here.
And my name is Guthrie, and we are talking about user testing today.
Yeah, we're going to do
It's getting nerdy.
nuts and bolts, kind of back to basics podcast. You know, sometimes we go off on these,
Well, we like to
know,
explore.
tangents. We like to explore. But today we're going to do just really,
Or for those of our listeners who maybe don't know a lot about UX.
It might be the new frontier.
Yeah.
It's like going into space.
Going into space.
Well, it's not the hot new thing, but you're right. There's probably lots of people listening that don't know a lot.
Never heard. What is this thing you call user testing?
And then there's the people who know all about it, and I hope will still keep listening as they're walking their dog or something. I'm not going to give up on this. I might say something surprising.
Oh, okay.
You know what we're going to start with, of course.
No.
A stump Guthrie question.
Yeah, okay, go for it.
I'm guessing that we might be able to stump you with a lot of stuff in this episode because, I don't know that you know a lot about user testing.
Well,
do you?
So I got my undergraduate degree in user testing. And
you
then,
did not.
There's a couple master's theses, PhD or two.
Theses. No.
Well, I definitely didn't get my undergraduate in English.
No, you didn't. Okay, so here's the Stump Guthrie question. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to give me a decade. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
A decade in which user testing became quite well known and as a normal technique to use amongst the people who do user testing. What was the decade in which that became a popular thing to do?
2000s.
Oh, good. I am so glad we stumped you. No, it would be the 1980s.
Oh.
It would go at least that far back. Probably the
I was
late
close.
80s. The late 80s is close to the 2000s? Well, I guess relatively speaking. I mean, you didn't say 1400, so yeah. Yeah, it's been around for quite a long time. And I think what's interesting about user testing, well, should we talk about what it is first before I go off on my...
Okay, yeah. I'll let so first of all, you've done a little bit of things with user testing in your life.
Oh, I've done so many user tests in my life.
So many. How many?
Wow, I don't know. I bet I've done... That's a really great question. Are we talking about different projects I've done it on? Or are we talking about actual number of tests I've run?
User tests you were affiliated with that you made happen in any way, shape, or form.
Oh my God, hundreds. Maybe. Would we have crossed into thousands? I don't know about thousands.
You don't know about thousands.
I'm sure that there are some people who might be listening who could say they've done thousands.
Thousands?
Probably. I'm in the high hundreds in my career. Yeah. Yeah, I've done a lot of user testing. A lot. I don't do as much now as I used to do.
Okay. Well, yeah. Our business has changed, and it's more hands-on work, right?
It is. I mean, I still teach about it. In fact, the reason this was on my mind to do is we're in the middle of updating our user testing course.
Oh yeah. Plug away.
Well, it's not out yet. The new one isn't out yet. So,
well, talk about the original user testing course.
Yeah, so we have an online video course on user testing, which is based on my in-person user testing courses that I taught for years. And now we have an online version. And I recorded and made that in 2013. the end of 2013, and this is now 2017. Wow, time flies. And so we're up. I just filmed all the video for the new course, updating the whole thing, and
yeah, we have a better studio,
much
fancier
better
camera,
studio,
better
better
sound
camera,
system,
better audio. Yeah, my hair is nice. No, I don't know about the hair. Anyway, yeah, we have new course materials and all of that. So that I'm in the process. We're in the process of editing all the video and putting in all the course materials, and so I don't know when it'll be ready. I thought it was going to be ready by now, but then I got on this new project. We got a call for some new consulting, and that's kind of pulled me a little bit away. But hopefully in the next couple weeks. So maybe in April sometime, April 2017, we're going to have the new course up. So if you buy the old one, you can buy the old one that's available now. And then the new videos will just start appearing magically. So you don't have to wait, because whatever you buy, you're going to end up with the latest one as soon as we have it ready. Anyway, yeah, so I've been working on this course. And so when you said, what should we talk about on our podcast today, it just came to mind.
Yeah.
So Guthrie, you're going to give us a definition of what user testing is?
No, I really.
Do you want to tell us what user testing is not?
I would say it's not organic chemistry.
Okay, yeah, you're not going to be very useful.
So.
All right, but you have to ask me questions as we go along. All right.
Okay,
So
I mean, you could help me in some ways.
All right, here we're going to do more little quizzes.
Uh-huh.
So Guthrie, you bring some people together in a room, and you ask them what they think about the. Let's see, what are we going to use as an example? The NASA website where you can see like videos and updates of the latest thing NASA's doing. Okay?
Okay.
And they you show it on a big screen, what the page is like, and you show them a few things one would normally do at the page. And then you ask them, you have like maybe, let's say, 6 people in the room, and you ask them what they like and what they don't like.
Sounds like user testing to me.
Does it?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Oh.
I would ask you what's wrong with it and why that's not user testing, but I'm not sure you'd know. Do you know? That's not user testing. That's a focus group.
It's
of sorts.
Okay.
Yeah, and the reason it's problematic is, first of all, you have a whole group of people together, which there's lots of focus groups, and they bring people together, and that can be really useful. But we also know that in a group like that, the person who talks first becomes the leader, and the leader can sway everyone's opinion. So user testing is done one person at a time, not 6 in a room. So that's one reason.
I probably just wasn't listening carefully enough.
Really? Are you at the NASA site now?
No.
Looking, okay. And then the other reason that it's not user testing is because the person running the group did a little demo and asked them what they thought. And user testing is one person being given realistic tasks to do and doing them while someone watches.
So that's a level of nuance that clearly I did not know.
You didn't know that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought, I like it's like I knew that user testing was a rectangle, but I didn't know that it was a square only. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really that's so it's one person at a time. And what you do is you have them talk out loud. It's called the think aloud technique. So you have them do the task, whatever it is you're asking them to do. So it could be use a website, use an app, It could be open a box. It could be. No, it is. So, no, seriously. So there are user tests done on, like, what's the experience of getting and installing, a router. And so you might actually start the test from opening the box.
Do people do user testing for non-technology related things?
Yes, they do.
Okay. So it could be, so when you said open a box, it's like I'm from Boxes R Us and we make boxes.
You could, but usually what you do open a box when what you want to do is test the entire experience of getting a new product. So, when someone gets a new laptop, or when someone gets, it doesn't even have to be technology, when you get a new a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
What's the experience like of opening the box and seeing the shoes and trying them on? So you can user test anything.
Okay.
Typically, historically, since the late 1980s, it's probably been done on technology stuff more than anything, but it doesn't have to be. So, for instance, I supervised a user test on, when you're at an airport?
Yes.
And you may not have noticed, but every couple of hundreds of feet or yards or whatever it is, there on the wall, there's a defibrillator. There's a medical device that anyone can use. Did you know that?
Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all.
How
there's rules for that, right?
You mean like you have to have one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
in schools, universities,
airports, you got to have defibrillators, right? And they're supposed to be easy.
Defibrillator is someone's having a heart attack.
It's the
restart their heart.
Restart their heart. Yeah.
Yes. And you need it because in cases where there's, it's you have minutes to act.
Yeah.
So you can't wait.
So, the idea is that these are like easy to use and anyone should be able to use them.
I've used a defibrillator.
You have?
Not on a person, but I am first aid certified. So
okay. So you know a little bit about this.
Yes.
So I was involved. So one thing that some people don't know, by the way, is that I don't know the exact year, somewhere in the 2000s, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S., came up with a new policy that said that if you were creating a medical device or medical software, in order to get it approved, because that has to be approved through the FDA, that's been true for a long time. But in order to get it approved, you had to prove to the FDA that you had gone through a user-centered design process. I don't know if are you aware of that?
That sounds really familiar. Yeah.
I think I have talked to you about that.
It's yes, and this is very common for the government to require some sort of process that people go through. So if you're doing federal contract work, which we're trying to get, though we'll probably never get any money. There's so much money to be had. But there's you have to certify, for example, if you're over certain criteria that you follow a lot of the anti-discrimination laws as a company, right? And that's the way that the government indirectly can kind of push policy, as it will.
Right. So you have to follow a user-centered design process if you want to get medical software or devices approved. So when they pass...
Mean?
What do you mean? A user-centered design process?
Yes, for those of the people out there who maybe don't know exactly.
Well, Guthrie, in our UX fundamentals course, which is free.
Yeah.
So go sign up for that one.
Wow.
I actually walk through what is a user-centered design process, and I compare it to an agile UX and lean UX and design thinking. So there you have it.
It's the original kind of the original.
It's just a basic process of how to design anything so it'll be usable. And part of that, so you have to do, do some research on your users. You have to have iterations, and you have to do a prototype, and you have to do user testing. And so you have to prove to the FDA that you did user testing before they will approve your medical device or medical software. So when they put that into place, it meant all of a sudden that there were a lot of device manufacturers and medical software manufacturers that wanted user testing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that had never done any user testing.
Actually, some of them had not.
Yeah,
Not of a user-centered design kind of user testing. I mean, certainly if they were doing a drug, they had done clinical trials.
Yes, safety testing.
Right. But this is different.
It's a different world.
So, and maybe they had done a little bit, but now they had to do a lot more. And what's different with the required user testing for the FDA? So when you're doing user, let's say you are the NASA website, okay? Mm-hmm. And you it's a good idea to do some testing before you implement a new feature or before you put out your new website. And so you want to do user testing. So you're probably going to do it on a surprisingly few number of people. This is what always shocks people about user testing. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about how you figure out how many people you should test on. And this is the thing that freaks out marketing people. So if you're a marketing researcher and you're used to doing quantitative marketing analysis,
right,
and then I tell you that we're going to do a user test on 6 people, that just usually floor, I find people on the floor passed out, Actually, I don't find them on the...
You mean 6 people per segment and 45 market segments, right?
No, I mean 6 people. We're going to talk about the market segments. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So they do. In fact, what happens, and this is a problem that a lot of people have that are in the field of usability and user experience. What happens is you tell your team, and which includes some marketing people, that you're going to do user tests on 6 people, and they totally dismiss it. They laugh. They think that's like a riot. How could you possibly get any reliable data from 6 people?
And you're a statistician, right? And so
I am a statistician. I know about statistics.
Right, yeah,
I
right. So 6 people is too small. It's too small.
It's a really small sample size. Yes.
Right.
So
how can you get any reliable data?
How can you get reliable data? How can you make decisions
based
on 6 people? Yeah. So I'm going to tell you how.
Ah, yes. Okay.
But before I do that, I'm going to say that the FDA does not subscribe to that. So when you do your user testing with the FDA, you have to do it. Well, actually, there's a formula or formulas. Is that formulae? I don't know. Anyway, there's a formula. There are formulas you can use to determine how many users you have to put through a user test in order to be able to report statistical significance on your results. Now, 99% of the user tests I have done in my career, we did not report any statistical significance on our results.
But you didn't need to.
Because I didn't need to, and it wasn't necessary, and I'm going to explain to you what happens when you do a user test. But if you're doing it for the FDA approval, you have to. So that means instead of 6 people, we had to run 240. We ran the numbers. We actually hired, to be sure, because I did used to teach statistics, but I'm not. I'm not a practicing statistician per se. So we actually hired a statistician to make sure we had the right number. We asked how many people do we need, and based on all the information, he came back and he said you need at least 240. So we had to test 240, which is like
someone made a lot of money that day.
And I did not. I was kind of supervising the project, but I didn't do the testing. And I want to tell you, thank God I didn't do that testing, because here's what happens. Okay, you want to hear what happens? You want to know what happens when you test a product? And after hundreds and hundreds of tests, I can say this is true. So, you bring in person number 1, right?
Yeah.
and you have them go through the test. Now, typically in a user test, how long do you think a user test goes on for? You bring someone in, you have them do realistic tasks with the product. They talk out loud, you observe. How long do you think that goes? An hour or two. Yeah, an hour is a lot. In some cases, maybe 2 hours, depending on what it is. But most of the time, it's like an hour or less. And in some instances that I can tell you about a little bit later, it's 15 to 20 minutes. But anyway, it's very typical to do 45 minutes because you explain what's going on, then they do it, then you talk about it, and they were 10 minutes late to start with, and so, it's like 45 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
So, so person number one comes in, and you give them the tasks to do, and they do the tasks, and they talk out loud, and you ask them some questions, and so on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's go back to that NASA website, So there were some things they liked and some things they didn't like and some things they couldn't figure out, and they couldn't figure out how to do something with the video, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so you now have this long list of, possible changes to make it easier to use. So person number two comes in. And they do the same tests, and they think out loud, and you talk about that, and you take lots of notes. And they did some of the things that person number one did, and had problems with some of the same places. But some of the things person number one did, person number two was fine with. And person number two brought up some issues that person number one hadn't mentioned. All right?
Oh.
Yeah. Now, person number three comes in. Go through the whole rigmarole. So person number three, kind of a combination of person number one and two and a few little original things. Okay?
Yeah.
Person number four comes in. And person number four doesn't do anything differently. They're just like either one or two or three. Person number five comes in. They're like one or two or three. Person number six comes in. They're like one or two or three. And you can keep going. And you are not getting anything new.
Mm.
Not a single thing. That's, in my experience of hundreds of tests, that's what happens. Now, I am going to give a caveat in a minute. But if you can imagine that is true.
Caveat?
I am.
Caveat.
Imagine going through
Say
240 that. People.
Right.
Where every person after number four doesn't do anything new. And it's mind numbing, Anyway, so so that's kind of a bit, really high level overview of what user testing is. But back to what you said about the 45 marketing segments.
Yes.
So that's how you do end up with more than 4 people.
Right.
So that's a very interesting thing, though, because, whenever I'm working on a user testing project, we always get to the point of how many people should we have? And then I go through the whole spiel like I just did with you. And then they say, okay, but, they say, oh, good, because, we didn't want to spend a lot of money. we have budget for like 8 people.
Well, and the thing is that they're more, so that if you do like a marketing survey, it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And I think people never really understand how expensive it is to actually do it because it takes so long, and you have to have a specialist there.
You mean a user test or marketing survey?
Well, like a user test.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're doing less, but you could do 60, but it's going to be really expensive to do 60 people.
It is, because you have to. So you're going to have to pay your person who's running the test, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody has to be, collecting data and analyzing data and interpreting data. And then you have to pay the people. Typically, you pay the people.
Right.
And then, depending on how you're doing it, and we can talk about technology and different ways to do it. You may have to rent a facility. Maybe you don't have to. And then depending on who, how are you getting the people? So you may have to pay a recruiter to get the people. So yeah, if you're running 60 people, that can get kind of pricey. I mean, it's not bad, but it's a lot more expensive than if you're doing 6 or 4. So people say, oh, we have a budget for 8 people. And I say, well, that's great. Yeah, we can do 8 people. And they say, okay, so we want to do, then we start talking about who we're going to test. And they'll say, well, we want to test our current customers. Like let's say it's Uber. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they want to test something new about their app. And they say, well, we want to test, our current customers. And we say, okay, that's great. And then they said, but, we also want to test people who've never used Uber. I'm like, okay, so we'll do 4 current customers and 4 new people. Okay, but then we want to test, like, people in a couple different cities in the U.S. and a couple different cities in Europe. Okay, so we want to do, like, 6 cities altogether. Okay, so we're talking now 6 cities. That's 6 times 4, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're talking about, but also new versus current. So
you can multiply that by 2.
That's now suddenly we went from 8 people to 48 people, and then they'll say, yeah, but we want to test young versus old.
Right. So now you're
at 90.
Yeah.
And we want to test men versus women. And we want it, right? And it just kind of like snowballs, right? And so here's how you deal with that. You want to know how to deal with that?
I mean, sure, you can tell me.
No, what do you think?
Oh, I think you just...
you just forget it?
Well,
forget the whole thing.
Hey, it depends who's cutting the check.
Yeah. All right. Well, but so is there any way? No, seriously though. Besides just saying, you just got to get rid of some of those categories. Do you have any idea what you could do to get the number down, but still take care of all the different segments?
No. Go ahead and tell me.
You have to decide which of those characteristics you want to compare to each other, mm-hmm. and which you really don't need to compare. You just want to make sure you have some men and some women. I don't need to compare men and women. I just want to make sure I didn't do it with all guys. Or I don't need to compare younger people and older people. I just want to make sure I didn't just do a test with everyone's 25 years old. So you can have variability within the segment. I actually call these cells. You can have variability within the cells. So we can
because certain things are universal.
Well, they may not be, but
universal
you're not
enough to discover if you're having any weird biases, because
and I think the thing I always think about user testing is, this isn't research, okay? And it's very practical. And so you just do what's practical. And even if you don't know what's universal, you're not going to do the test on 96 people. You're just not. So just decide which of these things, fine. I don't need to look at the difference between, and it might be geography, and it might be gender, and it might be age, and it might be income. I mean, you just decide which of these things we don't even need to deal with at all, like income, maybe in that example with the Uber. We don't care. We're just not going to look at that. And then which of these things can just be variability within the cell, on which things we really do want to compare data for this segment versus that segment. And then you can pare it down. So then you can at least get it down to 8 or, 16 or 24.
Because really, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the whole point is to put a product in front of users and just see them mess up live in person, to see where they go wrong, because they think differently than the person who created it did.
Right. Because no matter what you do, I mean, here's my experience. I mean, I've been involved. Sometimes I'm brought in to do user testing, and the product already exists. In fact, it's been out there for a while, and it's and people are complaining about it. That's why they're going to redesign it. Before they redesign it, they want to test it. Or it's, I love it when people say, we're about to release the product. Do you think we should do user testing? And then it's like, my answer is always no. Why'd you wait so long? Well, actually, what I say to them is, if we do user testing and if there are problems, are you going to delay the release? If they say no, then it's then you're wasting your money. But because you really want to do user testing early when you're just prototyping, to test a design. But anyway, if you want to do user testing and get some good ideas, and it's not like fine-tuned research, and some user testing is better than no user testing. So just be practical and do it. And I'd rather see people run a user test with like 4 people than not run it because they think they need 96 people. Yeah, but here's what I was going to say. So I've done testing on products that I was not involved in the design in, but I've also done testing where we went through the full wonderful design process, and we did our best design. And even in those situations, there's always something where you're like, look at that, we forgot, we didn't realize that people wouldn't understand that, or they wouldn't be able to find that. There's always a surprise, always a surprise, at least one surprise, no matter how well designed it is. And of course, a lot of products aren't well designed, and they aren't designed from the user's point of view, and so they have a lot of usability, user experience issues. It's very fun to do user testing, and it's actually really tricky. Can I tell you some of the favoriteest things I've seen people do when they're running a user test that they shouldn't be doing?
Sure.
Things they do that influence the test in a way it shouldn't be influenced.
Yes.
So there was this one because I sometimes evaluate facilitators of tests to see how they're doing. And if they're not real experienced, they'll make all kinds of interesting mistakes. Like there was this one woman who, while she was testing the people, whenever they did something that, she didn't like, meaning there was a problem, a usability problem, she would go, she'd make like a sigh, or she'd tap her pen on the desk or tap her foot on the floor. So she was signaling that they had just done something, quote, wrong, Mm-hmm. And you can't do that. You can't, if you're in the room, and there's some testing facilities where you're not even in the room, but if you're in the room, you can't react in a negative or a positive way to what they're doing, because that influences them and affects them and might make them nervous and that kind of thing. Another thing you have to do is you have to follow a script when you're giving them the upfront instructions, because I heard this one person, he was giving instructions, and he would give different instructions to everybody. Like one person came in and he said, "Oh, just feel free to explore." And I was observing him through like a video feed, and I'm just going, no, don't tell him to explore. It was a prototype, and there were all kinds of things that didn't even work. So that person just spent the entire time trying to click on things that weren't, didn't have any code behind them. So that was a big waste. Yeah. So there's all kinds of things, to do and not do. All right. You want to hear there's so many fun stories. Oh my gosh. So we were testing this, bank teller software, like the software that bank tellers use.
Right.
And this one woman came in. She was very petite, very small. She was probably about, I'm going to guess maybe like 50 years old, and little like half glasses perched on her nose. She looked like someone's grandmother, right? Or a librarian or something. And she sits down in front of the software. And by the way, I had not designed the software. It was so hard to use. It was so bad. And she sits down in front of it, and we give her the first task to do, and she's doing it. And, they're supposed to talk out loud, right? And in about 30 seconds, she starts cursing like a cowboy. I mean, I've never heard someone use language that bad. And the entire hour, I mean, we had this, and often you're video recording it, right? And it's this whole video recording of this little librarian type woman. I can't even repeat what she said. What the? Yeah, I mean, it was just. And we were like in stitches in the other room watching.
That's so funny.
It was pretty funny. Let's see. I am not joking, I have seen grown men, like 40-year-old men, cry. How about that?
Seems.
I've seen a lot of people cry. They get so frustrated that with the software or the product, that they're either in tears or just about in tears. And then what's really weird is so one of the things some people do when they do user testing is after the test, then they give them like a little survey to take, where they rate on a scale from 1 to 7 how easy was the product to use.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen people so frustrated they are almost in tears. And then a half an hour later, when they're filling out the little form, they say, it was wonderful. This is why I don't trust surveys. I have seen... Okay, you'll like this because you're a lawyer. I was doing a user test with lawyers. Okay? This was software for lawyers. Okay. Like for discovery, you would probably know what that means.
So so most American law these days is actually just discovery. So what happens is when you sue someone, you say, hey, I'd like to sue you. And they say, all right, set up a plan. And then you have discovery. Discovery is basically when, do you ever watch Perry Mason?
Of course, on reruns.
Okay.
Because I'm too young to remember the original Perry Mason.
For those of people who've never seen Perry Mason, what is Perry Mason?
Perry Mason was this show about, I haven't watched it in a really long time, so this is my memory and it might be faulty. But there was Della or Stella or something, wasn't there? Who was his female sidekick. But he was a lawyer. He was a litigator.
It doesn't matter. He's a lawyer.
And he was always in the courtroom, and there was always someone on the stand, and he was solving these legal problems and crime scenes and stuff.
Yeah. So they call it it's actually called a Perry Mason moment. That's what this.
What's a Perry Mason moment?
It's commonly referred to.
What is it?
That's when when the Perry Mason moment, the person is on the stand, right?
Yeah.
And they say, where were you on Tuesday? Oh, I was at my aunt's house. And all of a sudden, he walks over to his desk and he comes back with a picture. I have photographic proof. You were actually at the bowling alley at the time in question.
And then the guy breaks down in tears.
The audience gasps as this new information comes out. So they set up discovery, the whole discovery process, so this would never happen.
Because you can't. If you're gonna submit as evidence the photo, you have. The other side has to know that you have.
Yeah, because otherwise it's really not fair, and it's more of a game, and it's more of a moment. So these days the way discovery is set up, and it's done like this on purpose, is that basically you have to give the other side all the information about, they request they make these requests, right? We need every single document your company has on this incident and any related incidents and any people involved and any people that they know who might be involved, right? And, and then they do the same. And so for the days, weeks, months, years leading up to the trial, depending how, big of a deal everything is, you're hanging out and you have these bins and bins and bins and bins and bins of papers. I mean, imagine like with 2 hospitals are merging and now they're suing each other. I mean,
well, I know, and the software assumed that all that material had been scanned.
Yeah. Though these days it's usually a lot better because there's not a whole lot of modern companies that aren't using majority of electronic records, but
anyway,
I'm sure it still happens.
So we were testing with these lawyers. They were the most difficult people I've ever done user testing on.
Oh, of course. I'm not even surprised.
This one guy. First of all,
they're the most curmudgeon-y bunch of people.
And suspicious.
It has to be done their way.
Well, a really important part of user testing is that you have people talk out loud, right?
Well, anything they say might be used against them in a court of law. So
so they won't talk, So you have just all these people, they're sitting there, they're clicking on and doing things, and they're not saying a word, right? And so you have to keep saying to them, can you tell me, why you clicked on that, and then they'll just kind of, they would turn and glare at you, because you were bothering them. But this one guy,
not even surprised.
Everything we asked him to do,
me.
He'd turn to the facilitator and he'd say, "Why are you asking me to do that? Is that really what you want me to do? I think is there a trick here? You say that's what you want me to do, but I don't think that's really what you want me to do."
Oh, he was trying to figure out the puzzle. Yeah.
He thought we were faking him out. Like it wasn't really a test about the software.
Yeah, well,
it was really a test about something else. I have no idea what it was. And he was... he was really
and I mean, but that's the life, right? So attorneys just play games. There's a lot of games that go on, right, where you're doing certain stuff to get certain stuff. None of this surprises me is my point.
All right, so here's another question for you. So, I mean, I think user testing is wonderful. It's a great technique. It's inexpensive. It's relatively easy to do. You get just tons of great information. You know what's working and what's not working. But there are some limitations and possible flaws. Can you guess what any of those are? Can you name one? He's thinking very hard.
Can I name a
problem with the whole idea, with the methodology, with the...
Oh, sure.
What makes it less than perfect?
Well, I'll just take some guesses, and you can tell me if I'm close.
I can tell you're wrong, because that's one of my favorite things to do, apparently.
Yeah, tell me I'm wrong. So people are doing things to try and please the tester.
Yes. Very ding, ding, ding. That is
ding,
one.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes. They do. Sometimes they do. Like they're all worried about, being a good subject.
Right.
And so they're
a loyal subject.
They're not necessarily doing what they would really do, or they're not necessarily, except for that one woman that was cursing the entire time, they're not necessarily being as critical as they're really feeling. Because they actually don't want, even though you tell them, I didn't design this, because a lot of times you didn't, I didn't design this, I'm just doing the testing.
They want to give you a good review.
They don't want to make you feel bad, so they're not telling you the truth. Yeah, that is one. All right, you got any more? That was good. Can you guess any more?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
yeah.
what?
Can I ask more? Of course I can ask more. People don't do things the way they'd normally do things.
Yeah. So you're trying to do it in as realistic a setting as possible, but it's not totally realistic, right? They're not back at the office, they're not at home or wherever they normally would use that product, and so they're not, or they only have 40 minutes or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And so they're not doing it really the way they would really do it, and you don't know that, and they may not even know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing good here.
Thank you.
You got any others?
No.
There's one big one.
There's one big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's one big one.
There is, yeah.
Ooh.
Based on think about the kind of work that we do and I do, and I can't figure out how to give you a hint without telling you what it is.
I feel like I'm very close. Does it have to do with biases of some sort?
Kind of. What were you thinking?
Well, that's why I'm having some trouble articulating it.
Well, a big one is, when they're doing the test, you can see what they do, right? You can see where they click. You can see what they type in. You can, right? But a lot of
I got it.
What?
I got it. Okay, so there's a couple things.
What?
So first, you might be able to see what they do, but people don't know why they do certain things.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. And so
they try and tell you.
Well, because they'll come up with a reason, and I think we've
right.
talked about this in the podcast in the past. Like if you're just doing something, people will come up with a reason of why. Like, why did you turn left there? Oh, like they'll come up with a reason, but it might not be right.
Right, because we know that most mental processing is unconscious.
Yeah.
Which means they're not aware of why they're doing it, so they just kind of make up a reason.
And I'm sure, and you have lots of war stories where people are like, "Oh yeah, I really liked the thing in this one place," and of course in the video they're like, "Oh my god, I really hate the thing in this one place."
Absolutely, I remember one where, during the session, he comments about how much he likes the color purple, and then later on. And this, I don't know if this had to do with conscious versus unconscious processing, or if this was more a memory thing. But later in because usually you do your session and then you might have a debrief afterwards where you talk about it. And so later during the debrief, he actually said, "Oh, I couldn't stand that purple." But in the session, he told us he liked the purple, and and he didn't remember that he hadn't said it. So, but a lot of what, we rely a lot on the think out loud technique in order to understand what's going on in their heads when they're doing stuff. And yet, as you said, people will say why they're doing stuff, but it's not necessarily why they're doing it. So that's kind of a problem. So some of the newer methods, some of the new stuff that some people are already using, and I think might become more common, is to have neuro measurements.
Yeah. I told you I did this, right?
I think you did. Tell me what you did. I don't remember.
This was a year or two ago. I have a friend who works for a large research company that does market research, but very intense market research. For various things, and so she's a recruiter, right? And so she finds people to do the tests, and so she's like, "Hey, you want to do it? It's whatever. I can get you. You get paid $75." Oh yeah, sure. And I was just curious about the process because I knew what kind of tests they were doing, And so you go in and they kind of glue onto your head all these little it's kind of like a little cloth, and on the cloth are all these little I don't even know all the correct terms, but the sensors to detect the changes in your blood, so they can tell kind of where you're thinking. I went in and they put all the sensors on you, which is a lot of fun. And then they showed you like different ads.
Yeah.
And then they measure your response to certain stuff. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, so I think that's going to become more and more common as those tools get less expensive and easier to use. Because you can measure EEG, which sounds like what they were measuring on you. You can measure respiration, which is, you're breathing quickly or deeply. And you can measure heart rate and galvanic skin response.
Yeah, they had that. They had that too. It was. In addition, they had the galvanic response. They had a bunch of stuff.
So, what we should talk about for a moment too is, and this is a topic that gets me into trouble.
Yeah, let's get you into trouble.
So oftentimes, well, I don't know how often, but a lot of people, when they're doing user testing, will also do eye tracking. Yeah, you've heard this before, haven't you?
Me?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
yes, you do.
Yes, of course I do.
So eye tracking is. Have you ever done eye tracking?
I actually never. I think I was in the room when it was being done, but I have never actually done it myself.
So eye tracking is technology either built into a computer monitor, or you can wear special glasses that'll do where they can track where you're looking. And sometimes that's done as a test unto itself, and sometimes it's combined with user testing. So if you can imagine, right, that you're back at that NASA website, right, and I'm asking you questions and giving you tasks to do, and you're looking around the screen and deciding what to click on. It's tracking what you're looking at. And so in addition to having you think out loud, and in addition to knowing what you clicked on, I now can gather data on what you looked at and how long you looked at it and in what order, right? First you looked here, and then you looked here, and then you looked here. So it's a poor man's brain. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of, yeah. I'm not doing a brain scan, but
right.
I'm
But you're
to
trying to figure out what's
at.
going on in there.
Right. What are you paying attention to? What are you looking at? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you get and it comes with. I mean, the analysis for it's actually kind of tricky to analyze the data and calibrate the machines and set them up and stuff. But you get some great. You get heat maps and
It looks cool.
It'll aggregate data over all your participants and things like that. So it sounds really wonderful, Guthrie. What is the problem with eye tracking? Do you know?
Yeah,
what I think is the problem.
Yes, because you don't look at things with your central vision.
Well, no, you do look at things with your central vision.
Well, you do, but it's not perhaps it's not the be all end all.
Oh, yeah, it's not so eye tracking measures only central vision, and it doesn't measure peripheral vision, and we know that peripheral vision is so critical, and you get so much information from it, often unconsciously, and it doesn't measure that at all. So, I've seen people take the data from the eye tracking and say, well, look, see, they didn't look at that picture over there at all, so we should just take it off. Well, they didn't look at that picture with central vision, but it doesn't mean they didn't look at it with peripheral vision.
They didn't perceive it.
They didn't perceive it with central vision, but they might have perceived it with peripheral vision, and it certainly might have influenced them.
So let me give you. Can I give you an example of? You can confirm, right? Yeah. So you're looking at a website, and there's a menu bar up, kind of. So in the left, right, on the whole left-hand side. That think of like in an app, right, where you have the little pull-out. And no one looks at it, and they're like, well, people don't see it, we should move it. Well, maybe, but they probably perceived it with their peripheral vision. So they knew if they needed to go to a change, you know what I'm saying? But you might just assume, we need to change its location.
Yeah, because nobody's noticing it.
No one's seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to watch. I gave that little spiel once at an eye tracking conference. Yeah. They asked me to speak.
Yeah, you were very popular, I'm sure.
They never brought me back. I don't think I was popular. But that's eye tracking. So I think we're going to move towards the neuro stuff more and more. And there's some firms that they always include neuro. There's some firms that's the only kind of testing they do. They don't even do the more traditional kinds. So we're kind of moving in that direction. So then just a few more things I wanted to say about like the whole, your options. So you certainly can bring people in, like you were brought into a location, right?
I went to their office.
And you can do that, but you don't have to do that. So, you could get with them on Skype or GoToMeeting or something and have them do the tasks, and you can have them share their screen so you can see at least where they're going. You can't see them clicking. You can't see their face usually, but you can talk to them and hear them and record them and then see what happens. There's also unmoderated tests, which means you're not there with them. And there's tools like usertesting.com and userzoom, and where people the instructions appear in a corner of their screen, and they do the task and they talk out loud and they click on things and the whole thing gets recorded, and then you view the recording later. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. It can be very quick and easy and cost effective.
That's exactly what you want, right?
And it's always interesting. So I highly recommend that people try it out. If they've never done it and they have a product that they're responsible for, they should definitely check it out. So that's what I have to say about user testing. Do you have any questions, Guthrie, that we didn't cover that you want to ask? This is your chance.
About user testing in particular?
Yeah.
Do you see it blending in with more? Do you see it in the future as the field kind of becomes more popular? Do you see it blending in with market research?
No.
And changing, morphing?
No.
All right. Cool.
No, I don't actually, because I think that
it'll always have a special place.
Always have a special place in my heart. Yeah. No, I just think that market research is asking different questions. And so I think there's a place for market research, and there's a place for, I do even, I do what we call, target audience exploratory research, which is kind of a blend, perhaps, but that's different than user testing. No, I think user testing will always have its place, although it might really change in terms of that. If it goes totally neuro,
yeah,
it'll be different because you're not going to ask people to think out loud and so on. But yeah, and then when we have the brain implants, it'll be really different. We'll just collect data from you.
Yeah, we don't even need your consent. It'll be great.
We'll just collect your thoughts before you know you've thought them. Dun,
yeah.
Dun, dun. So anyway, this is fun, Guthrie, and I like talking about the kind of the basic stuff.
I know. I like it too.
And I really do encourage people who are interested, check out.
Yeah, you can go do the course for free, right?
All right, the user testing course, no.
No, but the UX course.
The UX fundamentals course is free, but the user testing course you got to pay for.
It's not that. It's
and if anyone has any questions or comments about user testing, they can, where can they reach us, Guthrie?
You can email us at info@theteamw.com. You can also just, I don't know, we're on Facebook. You can also tweet at Susan.
Yeah, at The Brain Lady is my Twitter ID. And if you have other ideas for topics, whether they're kind of far out things or kind of basic practical things like this, like user testing, let us know. We'd be glad to.
We're not going to run out anytime soon, though.
Of topics?
No,
we have a pretty long list.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you, Guthrie.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening, and have a great week. It snowed about a foot here, and it's still snowing.
It is?
Yeah.
That's in Chicago.
Yeah. It's the first snow of the year. It's only March 14th. So.
All right, well, put your boots on.
I keep shoveling, and then it's sunny, and then it keeps snowing again, and then I have to shovel.
Wow.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.